Hey, Gene. Hey, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll get started here in a few minutes.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
I know we have 1 minute left here, but I need one more for a quorum share.
Okay,
Just heads up.
I'm watching the participants.
I got quite a few yeses. I bet people will hop on here. In the meantime, our new fancy pins came in with our new branding on them. Oh gosh, my light's all messed up.
Nice.
One of the few swaggy items we can afford. I got a big box of them. I'll have to give them to each one of you guys once I see you.
Eight o'clock comes quick, that's for sure.
I
Yep.
know it rolls around.
Especially now that school is back in session.
I know, it's crazy.
All right, it looks
People are
like
trying to get their morning organized with the kids.
Yeah.
yeah. I know our very own Catherine said she might hop on the phone as she was doing drop-off duty. So I told her, please just wait till
Yeah.
you're back home.
Yeah, I made it back with a few minutes to spare.
Well, there would not be an pressure from me if we decided to move this meeting back ever. So 8 o'clock comes early for me, even though I don't have kids yet. Well, I think we have a quorum. This SWeb is Stephanie Webb. I see you on there. She is from St. Anthony North. I don't know if you've met her chair. We lost Emily Atencio, and Stephanie has worked with us in the past and is stepping in. I think once we get to the kind of welcome of Nathan, I'll introduce her and then also kind of reintroduce Sarah, guest of Adams County Regional Economic Partnership too. We got a few new faces in the room today.
Okay, perfect. We'll go ahead and get started then. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Thank you, Wadi, for running the meeting while I was out. It was nice to get away. It's been a few years to actually travel, so I appreciate your help on that. So we'll go ahead and start with the approval of the July minutes. I wasn't here, so I'll turn it over to anybody who has questions or issues with any of the minutes from July. I see no hands, so we'll go ahead and take a motion on accepting the July minutes.
So move.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Doesn't seem like we have any issues, so we'll go ahead and accept approval of the July minutes and turn it over to Carson for some introductions and welcome to CRL.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I know the agenda I attached to the calendar item had this a little bit lower, but I figured before we got into the numbers, I might do the happy stuff here and introduce our new folks. So Nathan from CRL, we've been working together for a little while here and have finally been able to get him here at this meeting and just appreciate CRL's partnership as they kind of look at developments here in the North area and look to create a better mobility solution as they always have for many years. So Nathan, I'll give you the floor here for just a few minutes if you want to just introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks so much, Carson. And can folks hear me and see me okay?
You're
All
good.
right, super. Yeah, thanks for having me. And first and foremost, I just want to introduce myself. I am a resident of Westminster, right off 128th and Zuni. And I am a passionate believer and user of transportation every other day. In fact, I was just texting Carson this morning. I was worried I was going to be late to work because the 120X commute this morning was the most packed I've ever seen it in my at least 2 years post-pandemic. So very passionate, avid transit user. I ride my bike to the Wagon Road Park and Ride every other day to commute into downtown. And like I said, it was great to see a packed bus this morning. And then during my day job, I am with CRL Associates. And for those of you that may not be familiar with us, we work a lot on various land use and transportation projects around the Front Range. So really excited to get involved, see how we can help, not only from an individual passionate transit user and commuter myself, but also professionally at the same time. So thanks again for having me. Really looking forward to partnering with you all.
Nathan, thanks so much for being here. I know I've met you several times, so it's nice to see a friendly face, a familiar face. Great news about the 122 or 120X. It's just nice to hear that everything is starting to come back on board. That definitely helps us with our mission. So appreciate you and your willingness to hopefully make it here. And whether you ride your bike or the bus, I guess we'll plan on seeing you.
That sounds great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Carson, you said you wanted to introduce the other person from St. Anthony. Sarah.
Yeah, it's so Stephanie, I know we got a lot of S's here. Stephanie Webb is with St. Anthony North. Stephanie, I don't remember your title off the top of my head, so you can do that in introductions. She is replacing Emily Atencio. So Stephanie's helped us immeasurably with Bike to Work Day the past when we've been helping them out a couple of years now. So she's well familiar with Smart Commute's role, and she's going to step into this role for Emily to represent the hospital and the campus there at St. Anthony North. Stephanie, do you just want to introduce yourself, your title? That'd be great. I think you're muted. I know, after years of this.
I know, and I still don't get it right. Stephanie Webb, Community Relations Coordinator at St. Anthony North. I've been here a little over probably 3.5 years. So most of my time here has been with the pandemic. And Carson, I wouldn't say I helped you immeasurably. I think you guys helped me every time I host it here at the hospital, but it's been an exciting time. And Emily asked me to step in when she left because I had a connection with you guys already and she thought that would be best. And I'd love to say I bike to work. I live 1 mile. My whole life is in a 1 mile radius. So sometimes I walk and sometimes I take the car, but the little bus does come by my apartment over there. I could take it every day.
Oh, you should.
Yeah, I should. I should. The flex ride.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
The flex ride. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to dig in and see how we can support.
Yeah. Thanks for your partnership. I'll just continue on to Sarah. Last month we introduced Sarah as a new person over at AC Rep. Lisa Huff always had a position on this board and the CEO kind of the Regional Economic Partnership has, and sometimes she'll be here, sometimes she won't. Sarah is kind of our new person there. Sarah, if you just wouldn't mind just briefly introducing yourself, since we have a few new faces in the room, I would appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. My name is Sarah Gist. I just started with AC Rep, previously Adams County Regional Economic Partnership, about a month ago. So quite fresh and happy to be a part of this. Apologies for not having my camera on. I'm currently sitting in traffic on my way to work and wishing I was on public transportation. So it's great to be here.
Thank you.
Carson, I think it would be helpful, and I don't know how we can do this, so maybe this is the transform conversation or even just a happy hour or something. We have a lot of new faces. It would be great to have everybody just meet in person, and it feels like it's been an eternity anyways, but I think it would be good for all of us to meet in person and have, coffee, or maybe one meeting in the morning. I know that's difficult with everybody traveling different places and in different methods, so maybe a social hour.
Yeah, I could not agree more, Chair. I think I felt that same feeling of wanting to meet in person, especially with new faces. And I've thrown this item on here. I thought about doing kind of an in-person meeting in September and thought, hey, maybe we could take the Flex Ride as a short little field trip, since I know a lot of you maybe have not taken it, as an opportunity to have a board meeting / kind of social time there. Once we get to the end of the meeting, maybe we can take a poll at who's interested in that, and we can find a time, if that sounds good to everybody. Sounds like a little bit of a working / social hour.
Sounds great. Thank you, Carson.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and keep moving on to approval of the August Treasurer's Report.
Great. I will just point out a few things here. I know this is probably a lot of numbers here for those that are new in the room, but this is just our basic kind of monthly treasurer's report. I hesitate to even call it that, but it's just a balance sheet here for us. And I do the previous month, that's how we operate here. So this is opening balance July 1st, and then we go toward the end of July, down toward the bottom of the sheet. So opening with $55,000-ish, which is a pretty healthy balance for us, a little bit higher than normal, just because we had quite a few deposits come in the previous month. The memberships piece here, St. Anthony North took a little while to clear. There was some issues with Karen's name and my name, and just hangover from that transition. And then we were able to get that cleared, no problem. And then CRL's check came in as well. So that total $7,000, $2,000 and $5,000 there. I finally got payment from CDOT for our CMAQ big grant from December of 2021, which is unbelievable, but I am very glad to have that one in. It was a decently sized one, $6,500. That completely closes out that previous grant cycle. Now we're well into the new one. It is much, much more efficient. So far, we're almost caught up to a 60-ish day basis, which is not too bad for them. You can see some of those payments rolled in April and May, and then our RTD Flex Ride normal payment that pays for operations on that is $4,600 roughly. The debits were a little bit higher than normal at $26,000. We're normally around the $22,000, $23,000 range per month. Salaries were a little high. So the month before this was Bike to Work Day. We had a lot more staff time there. Catherine, who is actually on a contract basis with us, ends up working more hours, and then I pay her more for that. So that's part of the reason why the salaries are higher this month, just because of bike to work day time. A couple of interesting things to point out here that are different from normal. $915 is a little high for our IT support. It's usually like $100 a month. This was me getting out of our old contract and into the new one with the new website, and then finalizing the email switchover. That took some time and a few kind of steps along the way, but we are fully on board with the new email, and the old one is still functioning as well. Let's see what else was stand out here. Our GIS contract project part 2, that closes out the GIS portion of our bike gap analysis project. Do you remember we paid Jean Shreve, who's also on our staff, because she's a GIS expert in a previous life, to do some GIS analysis on this project that totaled $5,000 for a lot of work. And we're thankful for her expertise there, that we could turn that around so quickly and then get that billed and reimbursed through our CDOT 60K TMO support grant. Our web forwarding cost for the next 4 years is $25. Just so you know, it should be forwarding from our old address unless there's some kind of they tell me there's a cookie issue on browsers, or sometimes it doesn't forward. So if you see that, just maybe clear your cache or your cookies and it should be okay. So our ending balance at the month was really healthy, $50,000 or so. And our current checking balance, this is where things get interesting, and I want to dive into the next piece here, is our current checking balance is $21,769. And our current savings balance is $74,106. So that's up on the savings side, down on the checking side, because of a transfer you'll see in the next treasurer's report. But I want to go ahead and talk about why that's happening once we get through this piece. There are a lot of outstanding invoices right now, which is also leading to that little bit lower checking balance. The big one is this TMO support grant final $16,000 invoice for CDOT. I don't have any reason to believe that's not coming through. They're just finalizing the end of that kind of grant process as I'm hearing. So the rest of these are all normal Flex Ride and CMAQ payments that kind of trickle in throughout the months. There hasn't been issues with them. They're just slow. I guess with that, Chair, I will look for questions on the treasurer's report, and then if we can get there a motion, and then I'll dive into this kind of conversation around the checking and savings balances as it pertains to the Flex Ride and e-bike grant.
Does anybody have questions? It might be helpful just to dive in before we take a motion in case people do have questions after you go in there.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to do that. I think that a lot of this is projected, so I think that's part of the reason why I was hesitant to maybe talk about it after, but I'm happy to do this and then take questions, because it does pertain in terms of where the money's going. I want to reorient you guys back to our 144th Flex Ride and e-bike mobility grant. Most of you in the room are very intimately familiar with this process, but just by refresher's sake, it's a $2 million grant that we're in the middle of, with about $400,000 total in local match over 4 years roughly. It ends in September of 2023. So that's our end time for this grant. So it's coming up relatively soon, within a year. So the process for getting this $400,000 in local match, part of it was RTD, part of it was us through the local jurisdictions, and then part of it was through this Rtd Pass challenge here that you're seeing in the bullet below the 2 million. So RTD agreed with us when we wrote this contract that they would issue a pass challenge if we were able to sell or promote selling passes to Amazon and St. Anthony North and all the other employers on the quadrant, totaling $75,000. They would match that up to $150,000 in terms of our local match, right? So it unlocked that $75,000. We did that quite some time ago, roughly a year ago, and got that money unlocked. So we got that $150,000. And we've had quite a few operational savings due to COVID reducing the original cost estimate. So when we wrote this contract, it was pre-COVID. Didn't have any idea of how the operations might change. They took a dip here and there and have come back up in certain places as we've kind of optimized it and gone to 7-day-a-week service, some of those things over the time. But at the very beginning of the service, we definitely saw an operational savings because of that COVID reduced service and kind of what that looked like. The local match that's still needed, so this brings us to present day, that we need for the remainder of our grant period totals roughly $170,000. $155,000 of that is our portion here at Smart Commute. This includes a number of different sources, and we are pretty confident that these sources are regular, and they have been regular in the past and will continue to be regular through the last year of this grant cycle. This includes existing reserves. So that $75,000 that you see in our savings account, roughly $50,000 of that is reserves that we've been keeping behind for a couple of years now, that will go towards the local match when we have to pay that back to RTD. We're supposed to start paying that back quarterly at some point in the future. There's no indication from RTD exactly when that will be, but it should be by about Q4 this year, we're thinking. So it includes those existing revenues from the savings account. The projected income from local jurisdictions at $15,000 a piece, right? So Westminster, Thornton, and Broomfield all contribute local match portions of $15,000, and we have no indication to believe that that will not continue in 2023, and those conversations have already started. $3,000 of their memberships from St. Anthony North and Amazon DIN 3 will go towards this project in 2023. So both of their membership fees are $5,000 as kind of our high level members, but what we do is we take $3,000 of that and put it toward this grant as a direct local match component, since they are directly served by the service, and then $2,000 of that goes toward general Smart Commute services. The remaining CEO, Colorado Energy Office money that we have left, there's some of that money left in there, not a ton, so I don't even want to give you a figure. Our Northglenn e-bike funds, they're helping us fund a little bit of the e-bike program for some of their residents, and Colorado Community Action Fund. We received quite a bit of funding for scholarships for our e-bikers on that. These are the number of categories that are coming together to make this 155,000. So obviously 155,000 does not equal 170.2 thousand for us through the end of September of 2023. And what we're looking at is a $15,000 gap. So this is the reason I'm talking to you about this today, or else this would be kind of a pointless conversation. I want you all to know that there is an identified gap because of operational increases, right? Cost of gas, cost of labor going up on this grant. So it just costs more to run these flex rides than it did in the past. So the increase is roughly $15,000. So what we've decided to do is ask for a proportionately increased level of local match from each one of the jurisdictions that are directly served by the flex ride. So that includes Westminster, Thornton, Broomfield, and even Denver. We've identified a number of folks that come directly from Denver to Amazon and St. Anthony North that directly benefit from this flex ride, either through one connection or no connections. That's how we're qualifying directly benefit. We're not going to count those that can double connect and get there. We don't even qualify that as a kind of a benefit to that jurisdiction. So we have a table set out, and we're going to ask for these people, each one of these jurisdictions, to contribute that adds up to the $15,000, closing that gap. So this is really the main point here. This is our local match plan. This is the title of the slide here, as to how we're going to approach this gap. Just so you're aware, the expenses up until this point on the grant are 1.09 million. So we're a little bit behind. We're a little bit under budget in terms of spending up to that $2 million total amount through the September of 2023, which is a good thing. Total operations is roughly $1 million. And then our other mobility options and admin costs are really, really low as compared to a lot of grants like this. So 139,000 in RTD federal funding, an additional $50,000 from the Colorado Energy Office for the e-bike program. A little note here about Uber providing rides during COVID, which was not an insignificant amount of money in terms of operations, $22,000. I know that's a lot of numbers. I am more than happy to walk through any of this with you. I just want you all to be aware as the board that there's this gap identified and we have a plan to go forward with it. But that Smart Commute is on the hook for this total $170,000, as we've known for a long time.
I think that's helpful. Also, I don't know if you can just do quickly, do we know obviously the Flex Ride did very well during COVID, better than most of the other lines. For the new members, do we know if it's still operating that way? Are we still seeing growth or high numbers of ridership?
Yeah, our Flex Ride is pretty stable in terms of ridership. I think most of the other routes, Gene would say, continue to catch up to it. So we kind of took off during COVID, right? And now people are starting to catch up to that line. That doesn't mean our ridership has dropped off at all. It just is continuing to flatten out a little bit as demand kind of finds its equilibrium right on the quadrant.
Hopefully we'll see more of that, as Nathan mentioned, with the 120 bus going up in numbers. Maybe more of those riders will pick up that Flex Ride.
Yeah.
I think the other interesting thing would be to know what is the revenue from this particular service. Obviously, RTD is getting that revenue. Do we know what they're bringing in?
I do not. I will note that to ask Jean. I'm not sure that Jean, our program manager here, knows either, but she could ask RTD for that number. I think the main thing for them and for us was this: how many passes are we selling right through Amazon and St. Anthony North and some of these other groups? It's mostly Amazon. So up until this point, let me look at my notes here. Up until this point, Amazon has purchased over $100,000 in passes. So well above that $75,000 threshold. We are still working on RTD to count that additional above $75,000. It's roughly $40,000 extra as part of our local match. So we're really focused on the revenue from those pass sales to people as opposed to kind of the fare collection directly on the bus. But I certainly can ask Jean what that number might be, and she can look for it from RTD.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? This might help with the question on the previous page about why those numbers were what they were. Jean, I see your hand.
Carson, where are we with the second contract on the e-bike?
Yeah, good question, Jean. We are so RTD has agreed to pay for almost all of the second portion of our e-bike phase 2 grant. So CEO paid for the first portion, and then RTD has agreed to pay for the second portion. We have signed the contract, Jean. We are waiting for RTD to send it up the flagpole. As far as we know, it is approaching Deborah's desk any day now. Don't foresee any problems. We went back and forth for about a month on a few things, but it should be coming out here by the end of the month, so middle of next week, unless something hangs up at RTD, which is always, as we know, always possible.
Kyle.
Hey, thanks, Carson, for presenting this. I may have misunderstood this, but wanted to sort of clarify. It sounds as though for the program we are under budget at this point.
Correct.
Yet we're looking at being over budget, or at least needing to make up a $15,000 deficit. I'm just trying to reconcile those two things.
Yeah, I spent a lot of yesterday reconciling those two things too, and I have for the past few months, right, since I've taken over this role. I think the short answer is operational costs, essentially from gas and labor, have gone up exponentially in the last few months with inflation. So this expenses through May of 2022, this under budget piece was kind of pre-inflation. And since that happened, we saw an incredible rise in terms of how much it costs. So we're going to make up probably that gap in terms of the under budget piece. We'll probably be right on budget toward the end. But we were looking at kind of a steady rise, and then it took a jump like everything else. And that's where that $15,000 gap kind of came out of nowhere, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's helpful. And then if, unfortunately, the municipalities said no, who would prefer not to participate in the overage, in what month or months does that put us in financial distress as an organization, if at all?
Yeah, great question. You're looking at about probably June of next year, where we would end up not breaking even in terms of being able to pay any kind of an additional local match to RTD for this program. If that comes to fruition, which I pray that it doesn't, I think the plan here at Smart Commute is to get RTD to cut back on service substantially ahead of then. So I'm talking late this year, early next year, if it looks like this local match plan is not going to work and we're still going to be under budget. The idea here is just to lower the operational costs by cutting service as much as we can in order to make us financially solvent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Worst case scenario.
Any other questions? I'm just scrolling through if I see any hands. I don't see anybody waving at me.
Gene.
Carson, have you heard from RTD how this month of August free fares has gone with them? Have they seen a increase in ridership?
I have not heard. I was just talking with my team yesterday about, I'm not sure how RTD is qualifying success on this, right? I assume it's just increased ridership, but I'm not sure if they're looking at specific lines to be increased or what those targets might be. We were not given that information. We're going to be out there kind of surveying riders on behalf of RTD at Wagon Road Park and Ride later this week. Just seeing, asking them what their experience was like. And I'm not sure, I assume they're going to take some qualitative data in terms of ridership, or excuse me, quantitative, and then mix it with some of this qualitative survey data and then give this was a success outcome. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a great answer there because they haven't shared with me, but I assume they're not going to say it was a failure.
I would suspect that RTD needs to have some quantifiable number of the ridership because the whole effort for that was the ozone. And to be able to document a positive effect on the ozone, they need to show that they've had an increase in ridership because they're spending money to have free fares. And I just like to see to hear what the numbers are.
Yeah, I would too. I agree. I think they'll probably come to NADA and present on that in September. That's my plan.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, let's go ahead and go back and accept the treasurer's report. Just need a motion.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
And no other questions. So we'll go ahead and accept the treasurer's report for August, noting that we're waiting to hear back on numbers for the RTD ridership. I can say definitely with the N line, that thing has been jam-packed almost every weekend and throughout the week even. There's a lot of riders on that N line. So it'll be interesting to see if this actually increased anything. But we also know that the number of cars on the road has significantly increased, especially with school starting back. So I'm not sure how that will balance itself out or if it will at all, but I guess it'll be interesting to hear what RTD has to say. Okay, so we're discussing the e-bike. No, we just did that. Website analytics. Is that what we're doing? We just discussed e-bike.
Yeah, we just discussed kind of this e-bike
Okay.
and 144th Flex local match plan, and that's the longest agenda item name ever. But that was really the meat of this discussion. The next couple of things are kind of more open in terms of what we're going to talk about. I think just to previously mention this the zero fare conversation. I think we can all say when we're out there riding, it feels more crowded, like Nathan said this morning, right? It feels like there's more people out, at least to me when I've been riding. I just hesitate to say if it's been a success or they actually have seen increased ridership before I see numbers from RTD. So it's my final point there.
Just anecdotally speaking, and sorry to interject here, just from a commuter's perspective too, I think interestingly enough, I was expecting to see more students start taking the bus and the train down I don't know if I've really seen that just yet. And I don't know if that is because of more online classes, more of a hybrid schedule for students, but it's interesting that I was expecting to see a lot more students, and presumptuous of me to guess who's a student, but I don't see sort of an uptick of students in the mornings. And then in terms of sort of the quantitative count, I don't know how RTD would be doing a quantitative count of ridership at this point. I don't show my card. I don't show any type of pass whatsoever on the bus or the train this month. And that's been great for me because I've saved a lot of money. But I know that a lot of the conversation these days, sort of along the at least in the social media world, is how much people have saved financially, over time this last month, and where they've put those dollars instead of an RTD pass. So I think possibly there's quantitative savings from riders that could potentially be measured. I just don't know how they're measuring ridership if that's not even being captured with the passes in the first place.
Great observations, and it brings up two hands from staff. So I saw Catherine first and then Tammy.
So there are basically human body counters at the thresholds of all RTD services. So it is able to, it's probably not fine grained, but it's able to count, how many people are passing through the threshold. You can conceive that, like, if you pass once to get on, you're gonna pass again to get off. So they're gonna have some pretty good raw numbers, and that's something they've always had on their vehicles. So conceivably they can report on that, that raw quantified data. What's tricky about talking about the increased ridership is it's seasonal, has an effect, like there's seasonal effects on transit ridership. And usually you would compare year over year to try to eliminate that seasonality effect. And we can't do that because of COVID. So they're going to be comparing ridership increases to the direct months right before. And that's probably going to be the best that they can do. But they're going to be able to get some reasonably good quantifiable metrics that way. And it's going to be roughly comparable to all of the ridership that they've had for many years. They've had this technology in place on their vehicles for a long time.
That's great.
Tammy.
Cool. Mine's not as happy and good news as Kit says. My niece this is to the student point. My niece is in school down at CU down at Auraria, and she has the pass, and she's legitimately not taking RTD because they have an alert program that they get when there are crimes and stuff that happen on campus. And she said she gets at least 1 to 5 every week of like mugging and then all kinds of stuff down on Auraria. So this has deterred her and a lot of her classmates from taking RTD down to campus.
That's not good.
No.
Okay. I wish we had that information as well. I did get an alert this week on the end line about some sort of criminal activity, and they had to shut it down. So we never really hear much more out of that. I do know that RTD did just hire their own new chief for security and police on their lines. And so they have a partnership with Thornton. I'm sure they have a partnership with Northglenn as well, and everyone else along that line. But maybe we'll get more information on that now that they have a person actually handling that directly.
Yeah, I hope they're able to quell some of those security issues. I think they were nervous about it at the beginning of Zero Fare, and I think they continue to be. Their security presence is just challenging. I think in terms of operations, Chair, you made a good point about kind of on time for the inline and service delivery. We had an interesting idea at staff to come up with, as they negotiate their new labor contract with RTD coming up here soon, that they should try to incentivize people working at a little bit higher rate during this month if they're going to continue to do this, so that they can really have a great on-time performance for all their services. So that the whole point of this is to get people to ride RTD and then ride it again once it is fair. I know there's an ozone component obviously as well, but if they want to put their best foot forward. I think there's maybe an opportunity here to incentivize some of the operators during this month, if it's going to be August or whenever it's going to be, so that they don't have so many cancellations. I know it's always a people problem, but just a sidebar conversation about the operations of RTD and how we can make it more sustainable.
Agree. All right, we'll keep moving with the website analytics report.
All right. Sorry, I got sidetracked there a bit. This is pretty short. So at the last meeting, I promised a few analytics numbers based on our website launch. This is a big deal for us, right? I mean, we're not getting a ton of traffic, but we feel really confidently that this website is a move in the right direction for us. So I did want to just take just a couple of minutes to point out some of the numbers that we've seen so far. I know these graphs on the screen are a little bit challenging. I think the only thing I want to point out is the home page is getting a lot of hits. So a little over 1,000 hits over the last month since we launched. This is very normal. About half of those are new users, which is a little bit better than our previous website. That's a good thing for us, right? We're getting new people or new profiles clicking on the website. I think we expected to see a little bit more of a jump, but as I look more into the data, I think I'm happy with the fact that we're hitting the same roughly 1,000 users a month clicking on our website, because this is a new site. Everybody was ingrained in the old site. It had a strong brand, a strong URL, and just a strong presence in the community. So it's nice to see that people are transferring that over to the new site. On the left here, this is kind of our day-by-day breakdown. The only reason I show this is because we have really strong during the week clicks on our site, and it really takes a dip on the weekends. So this is good for us because we're seeing those people at their desk at work clicking on our website. Those are the people we want clicking on our website. It is nice to see people on the weekends maybe looking at RTD services, but primarily we're interested in employers that are looking for commute solutions, and this is kind of a point in that right direction. I think one big piece of our website that was new is downloads or resources. So we hid them behind an email wall so that we could follow up with kind of warm lead generation. Nothing crazy. We're not trying to sell anything here, but we just wanted to be able to follow up with people so that we could maybe actually track down who was interested in what. There's only been 2 of those so far that we can kind of identify. We're about to start our SEO process, which is search engine optimization. I was able to pay for that through the $60,000 CDOC grant. It'll be pretty basic, but now that we have a little bit of data under our fingernails here, so to speak, we can really dive into SEO work, and we'll push people towards kind of 2 places, right? So the homepage, we're always interested in people getting to the homepage, just so they can start there, and also this resources page, which has a lot of our downloads. So we hope to see that number get bumped up. So those are kind of the 3 things I wanted to point out about our new website in terms of analytics. I think we're pretty happy with it. I'll take questions if there are any, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
Any questions on that? I don't see any hands, so we'll take that as a no. Thank you for presenting. It's helpful to just see. It's good to know people are checking out the new website. It's unfortunate with the weekends. I don't think the RTD buses or even transit of any kind runs the same way on the weekend that it does during the week. So even if you did work on the weekend, probably not able to access transit the same way.
Yeah, especially on Sunday, right?
Yep. Okay, Transforum.
Yeah, my last real agenda item here. So I just want to give you guys an update as to where we are. We had a pretty big staff brainstorming session, I think a week or 2 ago, and have done a number of things individually since then to bring us to this point on Transforum. For the new folks in the room, Transforum is our annual event. We've had it for a number of years now, I think 9 years or maybe 8 going on now. The theme of this one was going to be 10 years back, 10 years forward. Smart Communities as an organization is 10 years old this year, or was back in March. And we decided that it might be smart to focus on State Highway 7, CO7, harking back to kind of the Transforum that we held in the tent before my time up at CO7, and kind of talk about the mobility hub up there. So that was kind of the idea behind CO7, right? Let's look back to where we thought we were 10 years ago, look to the future as we're seeing some improvements on that corridor. In terms of timeline, we've identified kind of mid to late October. There's a couple of dates on there that we think might work well before the holidays, but after the summer rush, when people are kind of settled into that regular school schedule and things seem to be pretty normal. The video montage of accomplishments of the last 10 years was really a primary focus of us. We really want to highlight kind of everything that we've done for the past 10 years, including the transforums, including all the great programming work we did well before my time throughout Karen's tenure here at Smart Commute, followed by a tribute to Karen over the past, by the past and then current board chair, Jessica Yu, or maybe somebody else if it trickles into next year, if this mid to late October doesn't work out, kind of an in-person tribute to her. We want to make sure we do that justice. And then the keynote, this is up for a point of discussion, but I've been chasing this lead a little bit. Something about autonomous vehicles, right? So how much progress have we made over the past 10 years? What does the next 10 look like? We've had a number of speakers throughout the years that talk about autonomous vehicles here at Smart Commute. And there's always been this focus on, this is how golden the future is going to be. This is the direction we're headed. We haven't really gotten there. I think we need to have a little, it seemed to fit this theme, right? Where were we 10 years ago? It seemed like the future was really bright. Where are we today? It seems like we're kind of in this weird middle ground where there's a lot of testing going on. And where are we going to be in 10 years realistically, right? Is it this golden age we envision, or is it maybe something a little bit more calm than we ever thought it might be? So that's kind of the thread I'm chasing through a number of contacts with help from some folks. I think I'd be able to identify a speaker there relatively easily. I think the biggest challenge here, and I know I've emailed Kyle about this too, is finding a date and a location for us that is free-ish, pretty close to free, along kind of CO7 corridor right there at I-25 near where the mobility hub would be. And confirming that date and location is kind of the hardest thing for us so that we can get moving on the rest of the logistics. Our staff time is relatively limited, just based on numbers of staff hours we have. Karen's not here anymore, and we're all carrying a little bit more weight until we can afford to hire someone new, hopefully next year through our CMAQ grant. But this is kind of where we're at. I'm looking for input on kind of the topic and this kind of vague agenda that you see in front of you, ideas about the location, and then kind of how you guys feel if before the end of the month of August, or maybe slightly into September, by the end of next week or so, let's say we're not able to find a date and a location, what pushing it back into next spring might look like from a board perspective, and how you guys feel about that. So I want this to be an open conversation. I'm happy for feedback. Just know we've been working pretty hard on trying to get something put together here.
Carson, how many people are you looking at for this Transform event?
Yeah, we usually have between 100 and 150. I think it's hard to say right now, right? It's been a few years since we've done anything in person. So I would almost hesitate to say a little bit lower than that as the floor, right? So like 70 or 75 is the floor, and then maybe 110, 115 is the ceiling. And
you're just looking for a free location, not necessarily food or anything that might go with it, just a location.
Correct. We usually end up charging kind of a normal amount for an event so that we can cover our costs in terms of food or tablecloths or whatever it might be. But we usually try to find the event space to be interesting, topic applicable, and also as cheap as we can make it. And we've reached out to Children's Hospital and a number of folks kind of along that CO7 corridor, and Tammy's been kind of helping us lead up that conversation, as she has she's heavily involved with the CO7 project, as all of you know.
Well, I also have a second job at Johnny's Italian Steakhouse, which is connected to the Hilton, so I might be able to talk to them about giving us this space for free.
Yeah, I think we're open to chasing any leads in terms of event space. To be quite honest with you, I'd like to see it a little bit further north. Like kind of right on that CO7 corridor. Okay. But yeah, I think we're open to suggestions. Yeah. Sure.
Well, I'll ask some questions, and then that way it could be an opportunity or a possibility if something up north doesn't work out.
Thank you.
Quick question. How many people are you anticipating being at the forum? AC rep, whether we have space or some of our partners might also have space.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're right around that 100 mark. We typically have at Transforum.
Great. I'll bring that back to Lisa and brainstorm with her.
Yeah, thanks.
Jean?
I was going to bring this up under others, but for everybody to know, I've been on the National Committee for the Manual for over 30 years. And on August 5th, the Federal Highway Administration published in the Federal Register a new set of requirements for pavement markings. And it is looking at the autonomous vehicle and how it stays in the road. For example, it requires a heightened reflectivity in pavement markings. And because of that way cars can pick them up and know where to be within the road in a certain lane. All of this, this new part on pavement marking is part of the FHWA's movement towards autonomous vehicles. In the next year, the new manual's coming out, and in it will be a very strong component addressing autonomous vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists within the roadway. So I just thought I'd give everybody a heads up on that. I think for local government, it's going to be I'm glad they put a long time frame to come into compliance. I think it's going to mean that in almost every roadway we have, there'll need to be some type of lane marking, even in local residential streets. Because one of the things that came up was if you don't have any pavement markings, the car is going to pick the center of the road using the curb. Well, if you have two cars coming at each other from opposite directions, that's going to be an issue. And so to take care of that, a center line marking, a skip probably will probably be the standard in the future. That's all.
Thanks, Jean. I'm sure that'll be one more conversation for us at the local level to have, especially due to budget constraints and inflation and everything else. I'm not sure how that will fit in, but I guess we'll find out. Carson, I think the only thing on my end is I'm not even in town on those dates, but obviously if you have it going forward, keep going. But it seems like a lot of events are coming up that haven't happened in several years, and most of them are happening in October for whatever bizarre reason.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be opposed to pushing it, until we have a little more commitment from either a location or a speaker, I guess. But I'm, if it works out during that time, obviously move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think from our perspective, I feel like we're kicking the can even though we're working on it. And I don't love that feeling, but I know that it's not possible to pull off a great event without some time and some effort and things falling into place. So that may be where we end, but we're going to operate for at least the next week and a half or so as if we're going to try to move forward with this. And if things come together, we'll make it happen. If they don't, then we'll start looking at kind of spring dates for next year, not during spring break time, but some other time when people are hopefully in town next year. So yeah, I appreciate that, Chair.
Kyle, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what Jessica just said. There's a lot to be done in a short period of time. So I think my gut is telling me, let's do it right. Let's do it well and give you guys a little more time to put this all together. Relative to the agenda, makes sense to me. Love the idea of getting an update on where these autonomous vehicles really are relative to the hype and the promise. And then on the Colorado 7 focus, I'm almost wondering if there could be a possibility to broaden that just a touch to be sort of our general service area, with the idea that there are, in theory, all of these federal funds that are pouring in. You know, how is CDOT planning to deploy those? And again, I don't know if we could get Shoshana or somebody from
That's going to be a whole nother meeting, Kyle, and it's not going to be a pleasant one. I'll tell you right now.
Okay, so maybe scrap that.
Yeah, it's not going towards the area that we would like it to go to. It's being skipped over our entire corridor. And so maybe that can be an agenda item for next month, because it is a pretty, it's a pretty hefty topic. There's a lot going on.
I mean, and maybe there are all these meetings that we're having on Colorado 7 and the mobility hub, which on the one hand seems nice, but it almost seems like there's a suspension of disbelief, because on the other hand, we're hearing just what you said, this is all great in theory, but there isn't a dime to be spent on it. Okay, maybe a little bit for the initial planning, but if it is really that dire, then I guess I question, is that the appropriate topic if that's really going to be a focus? And I appreciate, Carson, this idea of the symmetry between that's where we started and here's where we are now. Maybe it's just an opportunity to say, wow, it really stinks right now. We're not getting our fair share, and it's galvanizing agenda item. I don't know, but I would really love Shoshana to be there in the hot seat. If
good luck with that. Maybe if you hate her, she might show up. I don't know. Good luck with that.
Yeah. So I don't really know where to go with all that, but
no, this
looks
is
like
great.
Waddy weighed in as well with pushing it off till the spring. So either way, maybe we can add an agenda item next month to what's happening on the I-25 corridor and the Highway 7.
Yeah. In
terms of CDOT movement, because there is quite a bit happening along that.
Yeah, there's
so maybe even inviting the North I-25, our mayor can speak to that, and sort of why that money isn't necessarily going to be available to us in our location.
Yeah, I think Jessica's obviously heavily involved, and we all are, with this kind of mess. I think the reason I thought CO7 is there's a little bit of momentum along the corridor to go after kind of piecemeal solutions, but this mobility hub piece is like such a glaring hole in the equation that I thought, let's shed a little light on it again for like the 800th time, and kind of, like you said, kind of galvanize this issue a little bit. I'm not sure if that's the right approach, but that was kind of my thinking, right, is to say, holy crap, it's been a long time since we had that transform in a tent. We haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Let's do something.
I mean, I like the area personally. Anything we can bring attention to that area and the importance of it is always a plus. So, maybe if we just have a few more months to think about it, maybe we can get creative with some of the landowners up there and the property that they have that maybe is sitting vacant or that we could use for an event.
Yeah, we've emailed the Perlmutters, right, and some of those folks that we've been partners with for a while, and see where would these leads take us. Yeah, fingers crossed. I think we can find a space up there, just clarifying what that looks like and making sure it has really great AV. That's kind of something I'm really interested in. Is if we have a video montage, I don't want to be struggling to hear or see something.
Yeah. Does Children's have any meeting space that could accommodate 100+ people?
I think Tammy's been emailing back and forth with them along with her CO7 contacts. It doesn't sound like we know yet. I find it hard to believe they don't, but TBD.
Yeah, Kyle, I'm checking. I checked with Children's, waiting to hear back. Check with Pro Motors, waiting to hear back. I'm also trying to check to see, and I know Anthem has big spaces there, so I'm checking there, waiting to hear back.
Forgot about that. That's a good idea. Actually, Anthem does have some good meeting space.
Yeah, they probably
Forgot
got
about
3 or 4 over there. So we're in that hurry up and wait mode.
Yeah.
All right, we've got just a few minutes left before 9 o'clock. So we'll wait to hear more for the forum and see where it goes. And we'll just wait on that. But I guess we're gonna do a poll for the Flex Ride field trip and our
Well,
board meeting for next month, or what do you want to do?
well, maybe I just send it out after this. I think we're a little short on time. I guess just anecdotally, I would love to see some head nods if people are interested in an idea like this. If you would rather just do coffee, I guess I would start there. Some head nods if you are interested in maybe taking a short 20-minute field trip and then having a bit of a social time afterwards for the board.
Yes,
Okay,
everybody's
okay.
shaking their head yes that
Yeah.
I see.
Or else, yeah, don't come back, right? No.
We're- I'm only seeing yeses at this point.
Yeah, well, all right, field trip sounds great. Okay, good. I'll send around a poll. So we normally have this meeting between 8 and 9 in the morning. That time will not work for the Flex Ride because it's being used. If we can do it in a call ahead and schedule a ride situation, Jean and I can work it out to where the driver will work with us to make sure it's a perfect ride for us. And we can just meet like at the hospital over there in St. Anthony North and then ride it around the loop and then come back, something like that. So let me do a little research on timing. I will send around kind of an email with a poll on what people's schedules look like, since we won't be able to use this exact meeting time to actually ride the shuttle. And I know that will maybe cause some scheduling problems. So I'll start there, send out an email later this week as a follow-up and see if we can get this thing on the books.
Thanks,
Sounds
Carson.
good.
Flex ride to a local watering hole sounds nice too.
Yeah.
Oh, afternoon.
Well, because it drops us off at the orchard or at the
Okay.
outlet side, right?
Yeah.
So either one of those would be good. There's a couple new restaurants I know in the orchard.
Yeah, that sounds
The only
actually,
problem
I'm
is there's
in.
no service, so if you get lost, you're on your own. There's no cell service.
Carson, would that be on the 28th?
Well, I'm not quite sure, Pedro. I think potentially maybe the 28th in the morning, or excuse me, maybe in the afternoon even, but I was going to send out a few dates, right? Just maybe 5 or 7 dates and times so that people could have a bit of a choice, since we're deviating off our normal path here.
All right, we'll wait to see that. Any other? We got 2 minutes. If you have anything to share that's fun or exciting. I don't see anything. All righty, well, everybody have a great Labor Day next week. And we'll see you in next month somewhere, hopefully in person.
Yeah, one way or the other. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
all.
Bye.
Great weekend.